Chair Kobayashi, members. My name is Cliff Slater, Chair of HonoluluTraffic.com, in opposition to Bill 79. Have you noticed that all the time the economics of this thing get worse? We started off at $2.6 billion, and the city's been gradually edging it up, and now we are at $4.6 billion and counting. And we've been waiting on a financial plan, and we still don't have a financial plan for what the city is recommending. We do have a funding options analysis, quote unquote, and a financial feasibility report. And from that, we get to understand that the train will not begin operations until 2020, that to build the full rail alignment, they need to raise, if you take the trend analysis of new taxes, that they'll need to raise $1.2 billion in 2006 in either new taxes or raiding the general fund. And they're planning on $1.2 billion from the federal government when they were told by the FTA 18 months ago that it's unlikely that they would get that much, that $500 million would be more like it. That's in $450 was what was forecast by the draft Oahu Regional Transportation Plan, and with the remaining $750 million to come from where other than new taxes, raid the general fund. This whole exercise financially is being rushed in a way that makes a mockery of deliberative process. We're not getting our ducks lined up before we're jumping into this, before we know really what this is going to cost us. And all that depends on it costing $4.6 billion, which is their latest estimate. But I tell you, if you take the 1992 final environmental impact statement, and you adjust for inflation and you adjust for the mileage, because it's a much longer system, and you adjust for the length of the mileage and the inflation, and you put in the same 33% for contingencies and overruns as the city has in the current price, you finish up with $6.4 billion, not 4.6. And coincidentally, if you do the same with Miami, because Miami is the only other elevated rail line similar to what Honolulu is planning, and you adjust there for the construction cost index and the 36% differential between Florida and here, and you coincidentally come up with $6.2 billion. I think you need a financial plan that says, hey, suppose it is $6.4 billion, what happens?
Thank you.
And may I say one thing more, ma'am?
Sure.
And that is that everybody that's coming up to testify is either yes for it or no against it. They're not for it if it's $2 billion and against it if it's $6 billion. It's not a very obvious business decision being made here.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Slater? Yes, Councilmember Upco.
I guess let me ask you that question then. Obviously, the price of rail, and I've said this in a number of places, is the biggest downside of rail right now. If cost weren't the issue, if we could somehow make that disappear, I know that's fantasy land, but let's suppose that, what would your position be on building a rail line here? Do you think it's a solution for our traffic situation, transportation needs for this island?
Well, you can't, you know, as you said, it's fantasy land to say cost wasn't an issue, because cost, I'm a businessman, Todd. You know, I mean, it's benefits and costs, and you weigh one against the other, okay, and I conclude, I've concluded for a long time, that the benefits in no way are justified by the cost of this thing. Understood, and I think we all understand that. My question is, if the price, say, again, the FTA gave us $4 billion. Do you think rail, as a solution, is a solution for our island's transportation needs? When you look at all the other metro areas with rail, and incidentally, there are more in in the metro areas that are larger than us, there are more without rail lines than with them. Okay, but if you look at the ones that with rail, there's not one of them that has increased the percentage of people commuting by public transportation of any kind because they put a rail line. I mean, it just hasn't happened. And you look at that and you can see that there are benefits from increasing public transportation, but reducing traffic congestion is not one of them. And to me, our major problem is the reduction of traffic congestion on our highways, okay? And that is the one thing that we're not doing, because the alternatives analysis shows that we have currently, we're 6% over capacity on our highways in the H1 CAM highway corridor. We put the rail in and we'll be 31% over capacity. So how, you know, if your objective is to reduce traffic congestion, then, you know, then the money is being not spent well.
And I guess I'll agree with you, and again, but the premise of your statement is the issue is we're not just trying to solve congestion. There's a lot of other factors that go into this. It's providing the alternatives as a means of transportation. It's moving away from a vehicular mode of transportation for the mass population.
Yeah.
And so like I said, I mean, when you combine all of those, in my view, rail becomes much more of a solution than, like I said, if all we were looking to do was reduce congestion, then maybe rail isn't the ultimate answer. And so I said, I mean, you've studied this a lot longer than I have and been involved in this issue a lot longer than I have, and that's why I ask you the question of, again, if we could put away the cost, is rail a helpful piece of our transportation solution for our island?
Not if a major concern is traffic congestion. I think you'd be much better off with what is essentially a proper regional bus rapid transit program using the managed lanes, hot lanes. I think that much greater opportunity for commuters to go door to door without transfers. Transfers kill.
Okay, and I guess going on that a little bit, what I've heard and as well as what I've seen is that rail is much more rideable and enjoyable and more likely to pull in riders than a bus system is. Would you agree with that?
Not really, because when you get down to what motivates people to use public transportation is when they can save time. And there are more concerns, like people who want to serve coffee on trains and buses or newspapers, etc. The issue is what gets me to work fastest. And if you have a means of knocking 15 minutes, for example, off of a commute, people will switch to public transportation.
Agreed. But it's not only just the travel time from when you get on the bus or rail to when you get to your end point, but it's how long do I have to wait for that bus to pick me up, or that rail, and so the head times and
the total trip, door to door.
Right. And again, we've heard the argument, and I believe it, that buses are stuck in the same traffic everyone else is.
Right. Unless you have managed lanes, in which case they'll go at 60 miles an hour while the train goes at 23, 24 miles.
Okay. And I still have a problem with that 60-mile-per-hour statement because, like I said, I'm in the zipper lane and we're not going 60 miles an hour when we've got a dedicated lane.
That's because they're allowing the HOV2s at the moment, and there's too many vehicles in the zipper lane.
Okay.
That's the problem there.